want to know a secret? Shh! Can't tell anyone. Come with me and I'll show you. Alright guys, so here we are down at the painting table, and we've got our model here. In this case it's a Steel Legion Commissar, which is ideal for showing you a great recipe of painting black, especially with the amount of black that's on this model. Obviously we've undercoated it in Chaos Black, and now what we're going to do, we're actually going to mix these two paints together. So in my left hand I've got a Baden Black. We're going to mix 3 parts of that to 1 part of Mechanicus Standard Grey. So what we're trying to do here, we're not trying to turn it grey, we're just trying to lift our black a little bit. That way we can come back in and wash it later on, and the washes will actually have something to do. Rather than just being a wasted effect, we're actually going to be able to put some black back in the recesses, which will darken those recesses down, and really the end result will be that it will create the illusion of light and dark like you would on any other colour on your model. If you do it with straight black, you actually can't create that illusion, and it makes it look very flat. So this is just a way of bringing depth in. So we'll go in, we'll put 2 coats of this stuff on, and we'll wait for it to dry, and then we'll come back, we'll give it a wash. So we'll see you in a minute. So our base coat's now dry, and you can see, yeah, it's lifted it. I guess you could say it's a bit of a charcoaly look, just a very deep grey. And what we're going to do now, we're going to dull that back down with a couple of coats of our known oil wash. So what I'd recommend doing here is taking your wash and putting it on a palette. Now, normally I like mixing my washes 50-50 with water, but in this case I'm only going to add 1 brush load of water to about 4 brush loads of wash. I just want to break the surface tension, just to make that wash flow a little bit better than straight out of the pot. Also, by doing it this way, it prevents me knocking the pot and spilling it over, which we see all too common throughout social media. So this is just a foolproof, safe way of using washes and not wasting them or ruining the area around you. So we'll put 1 on. We'll see how it dries. If we want to push it a little bit darker, that's okay. We can put another wash over the top and let them both fully dry before we move on to the next step. So we've given our washes a good half an hour or so to dry. Now, in this case, it has made the model look a little bit shiny, but that's okay. We can resolve that at the very end. The point is, it's now brought the depth back into those deepest recesses of the colour. So what we'll do now, we've got our base coat, we've got our wash, now we'll start giving it our lift. We're going to give it our first highlight, and this is going to be just with Mechanicus Standard Grey. We're just going to run around, give it a good edge highlight. You can go as heavy or as light as you want. The lighter you go with applying your highlights over black, the darker it will appear. The more you put on, the more it will lift it and make it look more reflective. So I've gone around and done all edge highlights all the way around, but that's completely up to you to how much you actually want to highlight and lift or drop it. The key point here is you want the shades in the recesses to really be seen. So I would be inclined to make emphasis around those points and the very highest points. From there, we can continue on and highlight it further and really lift or blend out those highlights to get a really great looking black. Being black, it is very hard to show this off on camera, but you can see that those highlights have just lifted it, and what this has done now, the highlights have created the grey, and the grey we've added to our black earlier, it's actually pushed it back down the scale and made it look more like black again. Between the wash and now pushing it back down by using higher highlights, it's just a great little illusion of the eye that creates a really nice not a cold, flat looking black, but just a little bit of a 3D warmth to it. So what we'll do, we'll go a little bit further now, and we'll bring some Dawnstone out. We're just going to use this as a very final minimalistic edge highlight. So this is going to be the sharpest points, the points you want to emphasize the most on your shape. You've got to remember, in this case, it's fabric. If you're doing it with armor, you may want to push it a little bit further. I've gone very minimalistic here, but again, it's up to you and your personal taste and the surface you're painting on. Like I said, armor, cloth, they're two different things. They'll reflect differently. So go as far as you want, or do as little as you want of this step. Now this is a really good point that I can show some contrast here. Being Steel Legion, the weapon casings are black, and I want to keep this weapon casing black. But here I'm going to be able to differentiate between the cold black of the metal weapon casing and the slightly softer black of the tunic or overcoat of the commissar. So what I'm doing here, instead of mixing any black in, I'm just working straight from the Abaddon black, and I'm just going to continue on with those highlights the same as before, starting with our Mechanicus Standard Grey and then up into our Dawnstone. And you're really, at the end, once it's all dry, going to see a complete difference between the two tones of black we've got, and you will realise that one looks very, very natural and organic and flowy, and the other looks very, very cold and unwelcoming. And I like to do this to create that illusion and really emphasize the fact that one thing is, you know, textile, it's made out of organic materials, and the other thing is made in a factory or painted in a factory to be very, very solid and black. So I'll continue on doing this and we can have a look at the end results. Here we are, everything's dry. You can see that cloak just has a slight greyness to it, whereas if the actual bolt gun itself has a very cold, unwelcoming black to it. This is really, really sells the effect that we're going for, the illusion we're going for, the organic and the man-made, the cold black and the slightly warmer but still black. So there you have it, guys. The secret to painting black is not to paint black. Grab whatever your first colour highlight is. You know, if you're going for a clean black, you'd grab your greys. If you're going for a blue black, you'd grab your blues. If you're going for a dark Eldar theme, you'd grab your greens. Mix that in with your black. So generally keep that ratio around that 1:3, 1:4, 1:5 ratio. It's still going to look black, but it's when the wash comes, it'll dull those colours back down, settle in the recesses just nicely, and it's something to give you shadow to match the rest of your paint scheme. That's the one thing about painting black. Everyone goes for a solid flat black, they can't wash it or darken those recesses any further. But if you do it this way, you've still got that opportunity to darken those recesses, which really lifts your painting game. So if you guys thought that was great, we've got plenty of other videos on the channel. Chuck us a comment down below on how this scheme and this style of painting black is going to improve yours. Hope that helped you out, Spamuel, and we'll catch you all in the next video.